The last couple of days, I am sure you have had a lot of time to digest what is going on with the federal government and these $10,000 and $20,000 gifts that they are giving to former and current college students. And yes, I know about the debates. Is it fair? Is it not fair? Well, I need you to stick around so that you can find out why it is fair for us underdogs. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of College Planning for Underdogs. I am your host, Nicole Renee, and I am just ready to dig into this issue of the money that the government is giving current college students. So about 2 days ago, I know I'm late, but for those of you who are new, I'm also a college and career counselor at a local high school, and this was Teacher Week. And so I have been busy getting ready for my students that are coming on Monday. So I found out about the information, but I wanted to take some time to digest it because a lot of the information that is given out is for, of course, current college students and students that have graduated. And my main audience are students that are currently in school. But as I begin to dig through the details, there is tons of information that is there for current high school students to digest for the future. But listen, there are some aunts, some uncles, some older sisters, cousins, mamas, and grandmamas that are following me right now that have student debt. So you all know someone who has been affected by this, or you yourself has been affected by this. And so they've been talking about this $10,000, $10,000, $10,000. Of course, there was conversation that, all of it was going to get canceled. But let me just give you a little bit of background about that $10,000 and why it's so significant. And so when they've been doing the research on people who owe a lot of money, a lot of the people owe $10,000 or less. And a significant number of the people who owe $10,000 are people who went to school and stopped going to school. They stopped for many reasons. So they either stopped because they could not afford it, they had responsibilities at home, they decided that whatever major that they were taking was not for them. And so they actually went and did something else, and a number of other reasons. But in the meantime, regardless of why they quit, they still owed all this money. And a lot of people who owed the $10,000 were people who got jobs where they could not afford to pay that $10,000 back. And so that became a huge hurdle for them to be able to get to the next phases in their lives. And so that's where that $10,000 comes from. So I wrote down a lot of details here that I'm going to fly through because there's a lot of information. And what I'm going to do is put in the description box below, which means you need to subscribe and like this video. But I put the link in there from the White House that details every single item about the plan that they're currently putting in place and things that they are planning to put in the near future. So let me go through my notes. All right. So since 1980, what they're saying is that the cost of college has nearly tripled since 1980. All right. And so the federal support in lieu of in the name of Pell grants, loans, and whatnot have not kept up with the pace. And so now the cost of college is astronomical, right? But the federal government and what they can do to help low and middle income students have not kept pace. And so what they're saying is that nearly 1/3 of the borrowers don't even have a degree, right? And so there's that 10% of people that I was talking about this in it. I'm sorry, not the 10% of people, but that people who are going to get that $10,000 when they kept harping on $10,000. So 1/3 of the borrowers don't even have a degree. 16% of the people who have borrowed money are in default. All right, they're in default, which means that they're behind on payments and they have stopped making payments. And in that mix are a number of senior citizens, your grandmama, pop, all of those people. and it's hurting them for retirement. Some of them are still working. Some of them have had to dip into their savings and their pensions and their retirement to continue to pay off these loans, right? Some of them are their loans, some of them are their children's or grandchildren's loans, all right? And so those are some things that need to be taken into account. And disproportionately, many of the borrowers are Black students or African-American students, specifically women. Those are a large part of the borrowers. And also, this last point in this section was something that hit home to me. And it says that 20 years after enrolling in school, the typical Black borrower who started college in 1995-1996 school year still owes 95% of what they initially borrowed. 95%. That's when I was in school. I was in school from 92 to 96. So what they're saying is that my classmates that went to school 25 years ago, have not even paid 95% of that money back. All right. And so that is something really significant that you guys need to pay attention to. And so for Pell Grant recipients, and so Pell Grant recipients are students that their family income sometimes is less than $60,000. And so they're going to get some grant money from the government. Okay. And so they typically experience more challenges repaying these loans than any other borrower. So that is why they're giving Pell Grant recipients an additional $10,000, because that population, as they've been doing the data, seems to be the ones that have the most challenging experience pay that money back, because Pell Grant recipients are more than 60% of the borrowers. All right. So for those of you who haven't been following, let me give you a quick recap. They're giving everyone $10,000 that makes less than $125,000 as an individual and $250,000 as a couple, right? And if you are a Pell Grant recipient, when you were in school, then you get that additional $10,000, okay? And current college students are eligible for this, as long as I believe they borrowed before July 2022. So if you just finished your freshman year, you better get click-clacking and figure out what you need to do. But from what I've heard and what I saw in the literature, if you were a student, especially if you did the FAFSA last year or the year before last, they already have your information, because they want you to submit another some information with your FAFSA and some tax information, right? And so they already have your information. And so the majority of those students, they're going to automatically be deleted, and they don't have to actually fill out an application, okay? And so for the current college students, that income is going to be based on their parents' income that was put on the FAFSA if they are a dependent student. So we're not going to go into independent, dependent students, a whole other conversation. But basically people who have proven by the government that they're a dependent student is going to go based off of their income. All right. So those people who are automatically going to get some debt wiped out because they have current information in the FAFSA account equates to 20 million people, right? 4 more little stats before I move on. So 90% of the relief dollars that are going out to people are people who earn less than $75,000 a year, okay? But 5% of those borrowers are senior citizens. So remember, we talked about the senior citizens. So why am I talking to you guys about this, right? My underdogs. And so the purpose of this channel is to provide education for people who are considered underdogs, from people who come from underrepresented populations, from people who are DACA students, undocumented students, minority students, students that have special needs that are trying to go to college, right? All kinds of populations that college access has been a barrier to them. So I want to supply information from you guys to, one, help you avoid these situations where you accumulate all this debt, and also to give you some other tips, tricks, and secrets, right? To kind of increase your chances of being accepted to the colleges that are on your list. All right. And so many of the adults that follow this channel are affected by this, right? And students, because there are a number of students that aren't going to college because their siblings, their cousins are telling them how much debt they are in, and to run as fast as you can. All right. And so one of the things that the government is going to do now that affects our current college students and students that are going to college in the near future, right? So let me read my cheat sheet again. So they have future plans to change what's called an income-driven repayment to make it more affordable. So when you guys take out a loan from the government and then you graduate, and you have to start paying, they give you an opportunity to look at some options. So one is just the standard, you borrowed this amount, we're going to divide this by these many months, and this is what you're going to pay. And then there's also something called income-driven repayment, where they look to see what your income is and then decide what you're going to pay based off of that income. And so what they're going to do is to lower the percentage rate to 5%. So it is going to significantly affect the monthly payment. And actually, they're going to put that in place for people now. But for future students, it's going to definitely lower the amount that they have to pay for their monthly, just so that they can kind of get themselves together, because this student debt issue has caused a lot of problems for people. A lot of people cannot buy a home, they can't buy cars, they can't do a lot of things, because when they run that credit check, the people see that it's on there, and it just causes a lot of problems and keeps them behind. All right. And so what they also plan to do for our students that are currently looking to go to college, or the students behind them, is that they're going to put some plans in place to hold colleges accountable that have contributed to this student debt crisis. And so one of the things that they're talking about, and this is where I want to do my whisper, because in all of the literature that I've seen, nobody's really talking about this, right? They're planning on publishing an annual watch list, right? That has colleges that have the worst debt levels, so that future students can steer clear of those particular schools. And so they're going to put that list out. So I'm not sure when that list is coming out, but they are working on it, right? And so the Obama administration, if I can continue to whisper, had already put some things in place to start helping students, because they had found in some research that some for-profit colleges were taking advantage of students, right? Students that were low income, middle income students that predominantly relied on those Pell grants and the federal loans, right? And so the outcomes as far as the students' return on investment and getting jobs was not good at all. So that's when you heard about years ago about all of those colleges being shut down. So not all for-profit colleges are bad, not all of them were shut down, but there were a huge number of them, right? And then you heard in that first group of students that got their debts forgiven, they were in those groups with the for-profit colleges. And so they put two things in place. Of course, there's a couple of things, but it's two things that I use and rely on. They have something called the net price calculator that every single college has to have on their website. And so when you go, just Google net price calculator, my town university, and it'll take you right there, and it'll allow you to put some financial information and some other information that you would normally put on a financial aid application to get a guesstimate of how much you would owe. So it's not going to be an exact figure, but it will be something close. They'll ask for your maybe grade point average, your test scores, extracurricular activities, to see if you would be eligible for any scholarships for that particular school. And then also, the Obama administration put something called the college scorecard from the government. So instead of you guys having to rely on these rankings that you see, and I'm not going to give out any names because I don't want them looking for me, but I don't really pay attention to any of those rankings because they're very subjective. But if you go on the college scorecard, you can dig through there and find information about graduation incomes, graduation rates, how much money people are making after they graduate, all different bullet point items that you need. And there's also a site called College Navigator. I don't think it's through the government, but it is a site that you can get some neutral information instead of relying on all of those lists and rankings. All right. And so that's the tea for today. And there is so much more that I want to talk about with this topic. So this is going to be part one of a little series. I want to read some more things and kind of find some other parts of this so that I can kind of talk to you guys in more detail. Thank you for following College Planning for Underdogs, and thank you for joining us for another broadcast. If you like what you heard today, because you know you did, make sure to go down and click the like button and also subscribe to our channel so that you can continue getting this great information, right? And if you want a free 15-minute consultation to talk about your college planning needs, and let's see where we can go from there, all right? So again, click and like. See you on the next broadcast.